Hey guys, how are you doing? Hopefully you're having a great day. In today's video, I want to talk about basic 101 drop shot fishing gear wise. We're going to quickly talk about my rod and my reel and why I kind of have been sticking to that combo. Talk about some of my favorite hooks, some of my favorite baits, and talk about the weights as well. So hopefully in this video you guys kind of get a basic to advanced understanding of drop shot fishing and kind of the gear that goes along with it and some of my, I guess, personal preferences when it comes to that gear. So let's get right into it. So starting off with the rod and the reel, I've come a long way in that department. So when I first started drop shot fishing, I started out with what I had, which was a 7-foot medium spinning rod with a 2500 or 3000 size reel. Caught a lot of fish. It was great. Then I ended up moving on to a 7.3 medium light Zodiac rod with, again, a 2000 size reel. It was great, had a lot of fun with it, caught a lot of fish. Then I picked up this rod. I didn't think I was going to be drop shot fishing it, to be honest with you guys. I initially bought it for Neds and all of that, a little bit lighter presentation. But one day I tied a drop shot on it and I was like, wow, this is going to be my new drop shot setup. So the rod I'm talking about is the Shimano X-Pride 7-foot light plus rod. So yes, it's a light plus rod. So what does that mean? So what this 7-foot light plus rod is it's a light power rod with a little bit more oomph. It's kind of hard to explain unless you have it out on the water, but has a pretty solid backbone with a lot of tip, as you guys can see. Hopefully there. Definitely more of a mod fast as opposed to a fast action rod. It's parabolic pretty much all the way down to, let's say, almost half the rod, and then back here it has a fair bit of backbone. So the thing I like about this rod, not only is it really light, I believe it's 3.4 ounces, very sensitive rod, but it has that backbone and that power to set the hook and fight that fish. With that softer tip, with that light tip, I'm able to keep fish pinned exceptionally well, and I mean amazingly well, especially with the hooks I use. I'll show you guys here in a second. When those bigger fish are fighting, jumping, shaking their head, this softer tip is able to absorb all of that shock and all of that movement and keeps the hook pinned. My hook up to my land ratio is pretty much perfect, and that's why I keep picking this rod up when I go drop shot fishing. I have a lot of confidence in it, and I have a lot of confidence that I'm going to be bringing those fish to the boat. But a rod is nothing without the reel, so this is the reel that I stuck on it. Last year I actually was using a 2500 size reel, the Stratic CI4, but this winter I picked up this Vanford 1000, essentially as a reel that I could use for ice fishing and drop shot fishing, and I stuck it on this rod here, and it's very well balanced. Overall, it's a very light setup, the lightest setup that I have, and it's very comfortable to fish with. The Vanford right there, very smooth drag. The line pickup again isn't as good as, say, a 3000 size reel. Obviously, it's a lot smaller spool, but this whole setup is very sensitive. As for the line, I'm rocking 10-pound Powerpro, and I usually run 6-pound fluorocarbon lead. So yeah, that's the setup that I use for drop shot fishing. Hopefully you guys kind of see why I went with this rod and this reel for drop shot fishing. With that backbone, I'm able to set the hook and pin those fish really well, and with this light tip I'm able to fight the fish really well. Let's talk about the hooks and the weights and the baits now. So hooks wise, there's really no competition for me. These are the only hooks that I use. I used to use, you know, drop shot style hooks or mosquito hooks and all of that, but after switching to these, again, my hookup ratio just went up a lot. I don't lose as many fish, and again, just a lot of confidence. So these are the Berkley Aberdeen hooks. I use both size 4 and size 6. As you guys can see, that's what I'm rocking on here, and I just nose hook pretty much all of my baits and don't really have an issue with that. For the weights, it's a little bit different. I pretty much just use a little bit of everything. I try to stay with lead in most cases just because it's a lot less expensive than tungsten. So these right here are pencil weights. These are great around grass just because they can go in and out of the grass pretty easily. I use these in a 1/4 and 1/2 ounce usually. Haven't been really using them a lot just because I've been fishing a lot of sand areas. But around grass and around rock, these are great just because they don't get hung up as much. Around sand and areas where you won't get hung up as much, I've used a lot of ball weights. Again, the lead ones are just a little bit cheaper. I use a 1/4 and 3/8 of an ounce usually. These are great for dragging just because they're ball shaped, so they drag across the sand a little bit easier. And again, just a nice cheaper option because I run through these like crazy. These are teardrop shaped weights, great all around weights, great to drag. They come out of cover pretty easily. I use them in lead as well, but these right here are tungsten. I don't really use them a lot unless I need that sensitivity to feel bottom, feel a transition between that sand and that rock or such. These are the Freedom Tackle ones that I have been using. I've also been using the Beast Coast ones. These are actually stamped with the weight, which is great for organization. But yeah, these are another great option of weights. Again, I don't use them a lot because they're tungsten and they're pretty expensive. But if I'm fishing like Simcoe or something where I really need to know that transition or feel the rock, I will use these tungsten teardrops. And here, Beast Coast makes tungsten pencil-shaped weights, which again I don't really use too much. That lighter 1/8 I like when I'm fishing around schooling fish, around bait fish and such. It falls a lot slower, and I find that sometimes I get bit on the fall because when that bait swims down, it kind of imitates a bait fish. So that's why I have these 1/8 just for that those scenarios where I want it to fall a lot slower. And Beast Coast also makes teardrops right here, which I have as well. So the great thing about the tungsten weights is that they're made out of tungsten. They're a whole lot more sensitive, and they're actually smaller for the weight class as well. So sometimes it's a little bit easier because they don't get hung up as much and the fish aren't as drawn to the weight itself. So now let's talk about the baits, the line, and let's talk about the leader length as well. So as for the baits, I pretty much just use Goby imitation style baits, leech style baits, and baitfish style baits. So as for the Goby ones, great for Lake Simcoe, Lake Ontario, where there's Gobies. I use the Angler's Choice here, Ridgeback Goby in the LB color a fair bit. I'll leave a couple links down below for videos you guys can go see it in action. The Angler's Choice Kill Shot 3-inch and 4-inch, one of the very first baits I ever started drop shot fishing. This one right here is in River Rat, great Goby imitating color. He also makes a fair bit of perch and baitfish looking, or I guess colored ones, which I have done very good on. Leech / roboworm, I don't know if you want to classify as just the leech section, but roboworm, standby, Aaron's Magic color, any browns, baby bass colored ones I've done very well with as well. Leech style here, where there's leeches of course. Gulp, Gulp also makes baitfish style baits, which I've done very well on as well. And of course the baitfish imitating ones, where the possibilities are pretty much endless. We got some eye shad colors here. Again, the English Choice Wally Minar. It's actually a walleye jigging bait, but I've done very well on a drop shot. Swim baits are also great, especially if you're dragging the drop shot, because that tail kicks a little bit. So we got some Ace 30s here and Rhythm Wave right here. So looking at this, you can pretty much drop shot anything. These are kind of just some of the basics that you can start out with, and some of my go-tos, I guess you could say. So where the water is very clear, such as Lake Simcoe or the Great Lakes, I stick to Sunline Sniper FC. I usually use 6 or 7 pound line. This line is super strong, very thin, and I've never had any issues with it. I also use Seagar Invisex and Red Label 8 or 10 pound, where I don't really need that super light line. Alright guys, so the last thing I want to talk about is leader length, which is very important. Of course, in general, if the fish are more suspended, you want a longer leader, and if the fish are tighter to bottom, you want a shorter leader. But one thing you guys have to consider is if you're pitching your drop shot, or if you're casting it. So if you're pitching it or fishing right under the boat, the length of the leader that you tie is pretty much how high the bait is going to be sitting up off bottom. But when you're casting your bait, The longer the cast, the shorter the leader is going to become because of the angle of your cast. So the longer the cast, this is the bait, I guess, right here, right underneath the boat. The longer the cast, the smaller that angle is going to become. A very long cast like this, when you're dragging your bait or you're fishing your bait, the bait may be very, very close to the bottom. With a longer leader, it's going to sit a little bit higher up. So like I said, the longer the cast, the shorter or the smaller the angle right there. So that's something you guys have to consider. I usually, when I'm casting around ledges and such, I usually tie a pretty long leader. I would say about a foot to, I don't know, 16 inches, pretty long. If I'm pitching around rock or around grass edges and such, or fishing underneath the boat, I'll usually run a little bit of a shorter leader like this. And again, it also depends what kind of bait you're trying to imitate. Usually minnows and baitfish tend to sit a little bit higher off bottom as opposed to gobies and craws that sit pretty close to bottom. So if you're trying to imitate a goby or craw, you might want a pretty short leader. So that's something you guys have to consider when you're tying your leaders. This is just the 3 tag end knot right there that I tie for everything pretty much. It also works for drop shotting because you get 3 tag ends. You just poke your leader line back through the hole so the hook stands up straight, and you snip off the other tag end there. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I just wanted to make this video quickly to talk about drop shot fishing. It's something I do a fair bit, and it's something that I feel like I have pretty dialed. So I just wanted to share my information with you guys, and hopefully you guys learned something. Hopefully you guys can take this information out on the water and go catch some fish. So I'm going to leave links to my gear down below in the description, and I'll see you guys in the next one.